Turned on.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the August regular board meeting of the town of Webb to order. So everybody please rise. Please pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. It's only the second time we'll be able to do that in a year. Next regular meeting will be September 14th at 7 p.m. The audit of claims meeting will be on the third Monday of September 20th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. An executive session will occur at the end of this meeting tonight for collective bargaining agreement discussion. I have no correspondence. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay, so correspondence. So I'll start out with our guests. Mr. Gaetano would like to speak to the board.
Okay, yes, thank you. My name is Bill Gaetano. I'm a principal with Gaetano Construction in Utica, and I have a place up here on the channel. I've been here for about 20 years, and in that time I've always heard about housing, that we need housing here in town, and I think the last few years things have been talked about, but recently I think Barbara has taken hold of locating a piece of property, getting it ready for a developer. So I've talked with John Vareca, who's with CRM Rental Management out of Rome, who I've done a lot of business with over the years, and John was interested in pursuing this. So we saw your market study that Mr. Hall, I forgot did it, and which again, everybody says you need housing. We need workforce housing for the people that work here. So with that, why don't I let John talk about what goes on in putting a development together, and I'm sure you have questions, and we will try to answer them for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting us up. My name is John Vareca. I'm CEO of CRM Rental Management. We've been in business for 50 years. We manage and develop housing throughout New York State and Massachusetts. We've been doing it for 50 plus years. We have over 6,000 units that we manage or own throughout New York State and Massachusetts. When Billy and I were discussing, I actually had placed up in Old Forge here also on, the pond, and great community. We were just joking, and we came up for something to eat. You want to go to Tony Harper's? An hour and a half wait. Go to Slicker's. Hour and 20-minute wait. Like, okay. The need for workforce housing in the community exists. We've looked at the market study. I know some of the stigma attached to it. Sometimes people say, oh, we don't want that element or thing. Workforce housing. Workforce housing is developed for people who live in your community, who work in your community. Hence the word workforce housing. You need to have a job in order to live in that housing. We would look at proposing something to the effect that approximately 40 units is a nice sweet spot. The number of units we built, 1 and 2 bedrooms is what we would recommend by just from the market studies and things we've seen. A lot of things you want to make sure. You want to make sure you meet the Adirondack feel, the touch. It has to meet the community's needs. Billy will tell you, Billy and I worked on New York Mills in New York Mills, New York. It was the old bar mill. Closed for
Another long time.
30 years. We built the building to mimic the old mill, the turrets in the side, all brick building. I was telling somebody earlier, we did the Moses Ludington Hospital in Ticonderoga. When we started doing the Ticonderoga Hospital up in Moses Ludington, it collapsed trying to do the rehab. I actually tore it down to the ground, built it to mimic the old hospital. It looks like the hospital was built from the 1900s, but yet the same brick, the same look, the same windows. You think it's part of the history of the village and the community. We did the same thing recently in Gloversville, New York. SC School was there for a number of years. It was closed for 15 to 20 years. Asbestos, lead, the whole 9 yards. Tore the school down, rebuilt it to look like the school, the original school from the pictures from the 1900s, 1920s. White brick, the yellow brick look, which I can't stand yellow brick, but we did it just because that's what was built originally. And I think that's what we'd be looking at to create something down in the Old Forge community that fit the Adirondacks feel, number one. Workforce housing, we would recommend keeping it where it was somewhere between 80 to 120% of AMI, the area market medium. You want to make sure it's designed for people who are in the community. I think the location you have picked out is phenomenal. It's a walkable community. It has all the things you'd be looking for as a developer. And the builder, you know, the flat land, you have the water available, sewer seems like it could be
Yeah.
achieved very easily.
Powers there.
Powers there. It's just, it's a winner for the community. We would love the opportunity to go into, you know, more detail, what could be done and what some of these you look at doing. I know one of the recommendations, I think when I saw the study, recommended that you may look at doing a housing authority. Great opportunity to look at a housing authority. My personal opinion, I think it's too small of a number of units, being 4 units to develop a housing authority. But there's ways of making sure the town is involved. You could be involved on advisory committees. You can actually be part of a board of the bigger community, bigger picture, so you do have the feel, you know what's happening in your community, in your backyard. So if you do hear things, and as you always do by council members and councilwomen, you hear from the community what's going on, they don't like this or what's happening, you'd be right involved in that. You can appoint board members to it, a rotating session. So there's ways of getting around that. But I think the biggest thing is you want to create a piece of land that gives back to the community. And you want to make sure you create a tax base. You want to pay taxes back, which is, you know, lessen the burden. You know, you want to pay taxes back, so you want to lessen the burden instead of owning it. There's ways you can create that through legal entities, and I'm not a lawyer, but there's ways of getting around it to make sure that it's done correctly, that the town is protected, you are receiving a tax base for that. This isn't a non-for-profit structure, that you're not looking for somebody doing a pilot to do it. But you also have to make sure this thing does cash flow and meets the needs of the community. You can do different things, you can do bond deals with it. But I think the biggest thing you want to make sure is that you're always going to have those not in my backyard type attitudes, that we don't want to create projects. We don't want to create undesirables in our community. This is for people who work and live in your community, who are making between 80 to 120% of the AMI in the market. People who are making that $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year, you know, that you can actually put in the community, live in here, and create synergy so they can put their money back in your community, back into the restaurants. Eventually buy homes in the community, start raising their family, being a 2-bedroom, love what they're doing, buying a home. I mean, your home prices here have skyrocketed in the last few years. And it's probably going to continue. You look at the chip plant being done in Utica, and the new hospital being built, there are estimated over 5,000 people moving in that community. They're going to come to Old Forge. Yeah, this is no hidden secret. It's going to get out very quickly. Your prices will continue to escalate. You know, if you're trying to build affordable housing, you don't want to build affordable housing. You want to build workforce housing. So people who are working in your community can give back to your community. That would be my suggestion as a developer, to look at that type of building. But again, setting parameters that the board and the town were fully involved in to make sure that this meets your needs and that you're pleased the entire process of this. There's ways of doing that. You can become involved through codes and everything else along the way. But again, I think the biggest thing is an advisory board that's set up by the town that has a say in the direction and the financial stability of this property. The last thing you want to do is have something being built that financially doesn't make sense. Nobody wins. So there's a lot to be involved here. You have to make sure you do the market studies. You have a lot of open meetings and discussions about this. Finding that spot that's the affordability that working folks in the community can afford to live in these units, but yet they're giving back to you. They're shopping the grocery stores, they're stopping the restaurants, they're buying the gas, they're using the lakes. It's a win-win. We all know it's not a secret. You need workforce housing up here. What's that number? I think you control the growth of it. You do the 40 units between a 35 to 40 unit mix, and you see how that goes. If you're pleased with it, you look at possibly phase 2 in the future, as the need progresses. But there's checks and balances in everything you do, and you have to make sure that the town's involved and the board is involved, or the advisory boards may be appointed, that there's a member that has an interest in this, and that it's being done correctly, and they're watching it every step of the way, from the construction to the financial aspect of it. I'm a profit-motivated developer. It's not a bad word, no, it really isn't. But it has to be a win for everyone here. I'm not going to come here hat in hand and say we need this, we need that, but it has to make sense for the viability of everybody involved. The land cost has to be reasonable where it's something you can make a living and keep the rents low. The last thing you want to do is get a piece of land and say, well, it's great, but it's a $500,000 piece of land or $1 million piece of land. Well, those costs get built right in. You're not helping anybody by that. There's ways of doing this to create this team to make sure it's a win-win for what you're trying to accomplish and for your community. Questions?
Yeah, questions?
Sure do.
We can help you.
Well, I guess, first of all, have you seen the building that's down there? I don't think you wanna, or that was down there, probably don't wanna.
We don't want to build
reproduce
a
that.
concrete garage.
Remember that, okay.
So, I guess the biggest thing, this isn't obviously our first plan, but we've talked about this for a long time. We've tried to figure out what is affordable. We had a gentleman in town that built housing that affordable was a tough thing to come up with. He tried to build them as reasonably as he could and tried to rent them or sell them as reasonable as he could, and the affordability just didn't kind of work, didn't work with it. So, my question, in saying that is, when you get somebody to develop this, build this, it seems that, whose problem is that? I mean, if you built the building, you need to make money off of it, so you have to determine what's affordable. So where do we stand on that?
Can I talk to him about it? So we really haven't had a chance as a board to discuss this stuff, but the property is what helps to keep it affordable. That's how the board conveys that property, number one. Currently, we don't draw any taxes there. So once it gets on the tax rolls, whatever that arrangement is, that's how we, the town gets money back.
Help with it.
But that property is huge. To go out and buy that property to start housing would,
Okay, I
so that
suppose
reduces
that's only
the
like the
expense.
first leg of it. Eventually, you need to make money off of it. Sure. I'm assuming.
Well, there's no question, Mike, it's called the pro forma, okay? The first cost is the land, then the bricks and mortar, okay? The development cost, the architect, the lawyers, whatever. And then you back, how many units? 30, 40. We back into it and say, to afford all that, we need X number of dollars a month rent.
Correct.
Okay, there's no magic to it. Do the numbers. It's called a pro forma. So that's what a developer would do to say, we can afford to build this and rent for X number of dollars so the people in town can afford it.
And that's what I think has kind of been the problem.
Right.
Right.
You know.
And I think that's it too. I think what happened is, the best intentions to keep it affordable. But you have to go in this with your eyes wide open. What is your land cost, like Billy said? Let's face it, construction costs now, we were just saying about it.
Out of control. Out of control. But things go up.
Things are coming down. We see lumber coming down, look around. We were just joking, I'm doing a complex right now in Utica, we're trying to get refrigerators, 6 months for refrigerators. Because you just can't find compressors. And, oh, by the way, there's a 10% increase in roofing costs next week.
That's our issue, putting the pro forma together, okay, to see what is the bricks and mortar going to cost, so we can back into an affordable rent.
And I think that's the key. You want to kind of back into it. You need to have some idea what the numbers may be. We have a rough idea what square footage costs may be in today's market, what it may be 12 months from now. What's the land acquisition cost? And full disclosure, the land cost is going to be a big one, like Barb said. I mean, that's an expensive piece of land. That all comes into play what you can bank your rents out to be. You want to make sure you follow the plan you have in place, that this stays workforce housing, but that it stays where the people who are renting it are not subject to a $125 rent increase next year, a $300 rent increase next year. You got to do your homework and not kid each other. I'm not going to come in here and give you a bunch of smoke and mirrors and this is going to be, the numbers are the numbers. If the taxes are taken into consideration, what the escalating costs may be, water costs, sewer costs, you base these things, and we do with a pro forma. Like Billy said, you have your first year pro forma for your construction budget, and then you do your 3, your 5, and your 10-year pro formas based on historical data. And these are what your rents can be capped out to be going forward to make this cost effective.
I'm guessing that you guys came in here, you did some of your homework already. I mean, so you wouldn't be sitting here
We wouldn't be sitting here if
if
it
it
didn't
wasn't
make
something
sense.
that might be viable.
We're interested.
Interesting.
Barbara asked us to come and just, if you had any questions, as a contractor developer, we can help you. We know you gotta put out an RFQ, and then RFP, whatever, fine, we get it. But we're interested in trying to make this a reality. once and for all, you do have a market study, which is very important. Very first thing, even in finance, you have a market study. Yes, you folks have done it.
And we cleared the land.
You're getting an environmental audit,
Right.
and you're working on a survey. Those are three things that anybody needs. So I give you guys a lot of credit that you've already taken a couple of steps. You're already ahead of step one.
What do you find, and typically, again, hypothetically, the average rent scheme, what range do you think would be?
I don't know what the market said. I don't have the market in front of me. I don't know.
I guess with previous projects and stuff like that, some of that's like similar.
I think you're probably in that $800 to $1,000 price range.
So I know a lot of people that live here now that are paying $850 a month, let's say, are struggling even at that with the workforce.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? So I just know that there's a lot of people that live by themselves, so even like $650 would be, I guess that's just my curiosity here is, we gotta make sure that the workforce that we do have here can actually still afford this.
And again, you can do it where you can change your AMI to, 80 to 120% of the AMI, depending on your availability for housing. You can lower that to a 70% of AMI, so you may have a couple of units that are less expensive, let's say. So it meets that niche market that you have in the community. So the person who's making that $50,000 a year, and the person who's making 80 can still live there. There may be a slight difference in rent because the affordability side of it. This is not affordable housing, but it's actually workforce housing. But you have a scale where you can actually do amenities differently at the same time. And these were all, this is the pro forma. What is the final cost? And what do we need to generate rents to make this a solvent property? The last thing you want to do is find out that you thought you were building something that was workforce housing and it's being pushed out of the marketplace and they can't afford it.
Right.
Nobody wins.
And who, you say something about an advisory board, what gives that advisory board the authority to say, you don't work here, so you can't live here?
Answer that one.
Well, that's a tough one because you run into all sorts of discrimination and everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Or you can't rent it, or you can't do this, or you can't do that.
Well, we can set parameters for that, can't we? If we're choosing to do this for year-round housing, we can say that this is not for snowmobile rentals.
Yes, no, this would have to be
It's-
year-round leases,
Right.
fully executed year-round leases that have to follow the parameters of it. And again, depending on what avenue you went on the development of this, there's several ways you can go. If there's bond issues involved, if you're looking at grants that may be involved, there's other parameters we have to follow along the way. And again, this is preliminary steps, but you instill the rules and regulations from the very beginning and they're followed. If you were to do a bond deal, you'd be required to follow the regulations of the federal government. As far as the IRS, if you did a tax credit deal and things of that nature, there's stipulations that the person has to live there for 1 year, has to meet all those requirements. Everybody who moves in one of our facilities, number one, does criminal background, sex offender status, history backgrounds, to make sure they can afford to live there. The last thing you want to do also is create something that somebody can afford to live in. It doesn't do anybody any good doing an eviction 3 months after they moved in, or they had a great summer job, but they're laid off in the winter now. How do I make my rent work? So you want to make sure that you look at all these parameters, that we don't have vacant units, and that we really defeated our purpose of building this complex.
So, do you have some rental locations that do voucher?
Yes, oh yes.
Okay, because that has been part of what's been recommended to us, the housing, what do you call it? Oh my God.
The mixed breed.
No,
Home loan bank, home loan bank.
no.
Well, basically, they have a voucher from the government that subsidizes part of their rents.
A voucher's
Same thing as
It could be through DHCR, HCR, which is basically giving them a percentage of the rent is paid for by the state or the federal government.
Title VIII.
The housing authority is what I was trying to say.
Housing authority vouchers.
But-
Which are basically a sticky voucher that they give out to people to provide housing for them, that they can actually, the tenant has that voucher and it goes with. The old days, it was the old Section 8 housing where the voucher was owned by the housing complex, not by the tenant. Nowadays, it's usually a sticky voucher where the tenant has that voucher and can use that to purchase housing or live in housing at a reduced rate.
So could we incorporate that into this, or
You
is,
could,
okay.
but
well,
then you
that's a
open
long-
yourself up to
More rules.
elements you may not want to.
Right, okay. Yeah, if you looked through this study, there are people who are paying 62 or 64% of their income for home to live.
You can't
It's
afford
insane,
that.
yeah. It's really insane here right now, so something's gotta give. I did talk with Bill a little bit on the phone, just very briefly, and one of the things in the conclusions recommendations is it talks about that it's recommended that we hire a firm to begin working on schematics and look at possibly moving the Joy Track Road and that sort of stuff. Bill recommended that a developer do that, not hiring a separate entity. It makes sense to me about placement and all of that,
The next step, like I said, you've done survey, the audit, and market study, would be talking to the IDA about how do we move that road? What's involved? I mean, that's another thing that has to be done. Now you have a nice piece of property, so between Casey and the Herkimer County guys, we ought to be getting together.
Right.
Where are the utilities? Like, has there been, does everybody know where the utilities are out there?
We've
I'm sure you have maps.
We started mapping out.
Right, I'm saying, so you got water out there.
The same thing with the sewer connection, are you looking at a pump station because you're below, so there's costs associated with pump stations, the elevations, and again, all these costs that are built into that pro forma to come up with rents that justify the construction.
It's gonna be a fourth main out of there.
Okay.
Because of all the electric cables that are being ran in that substation.
Grid has got a lot of lines coming down through there. Okay, but that's another good survey, Barbara, to get, get the utility survey, what's there?
Okay.
That would help, it helps the process, okay?
So it just seems to me that the placement of the road is kind of chicken and egg, because where's the best place to put the building and how is the county gonna allow us
No,
to?
I'm saying, let the county, or if you have an engineer that you guys bring in for consultant, let's go out there, put our heads together, not us.
Okay,
Let's say,
alright.
all right, let's move it 100 feet, or let's move it wherever, okay? It could be a preliminary deal, and then if a developer gets selected and it's gonna happen, well then, you want the
Yeah,
IDA
then
in
you
case you
want-
say,
right.
then we'll do it.
And I think that's the thing, like Billy said, it could even be on paper where the road would be proposed, the road would be moved.
Yeah.
And at that time, you could do renderings, facade renderings and drawings where the building placements would be, what amenities would be in the building. You can get more detail on what would actually fit in the footprint that you're laying out. There's setbacks to be requirement, like say the road issues, so we have to take a lot in consideration. So even if you had a preliminary survey of what a potentially road moving, we could actually put that on a
Right.
grid, show you artist renderings and three-dimensional photos and,
Yeah, right.
and all the fun presentation
But that's
stuff.
after, that's
After you have an idea
after
of
the concept.
what the footprint would be.
Okay.
It's a county-owned road,
Okay.
so
County.
we're strictly dealing with that.
All right, but Kasich said he would help you.
Oh, yeah, he did.
That's fine.
I just talked to him today.
Sure, that's great. And then like I say, the survey said in there 8 acres. Well, where's the 8 acres, I guess,
Right.
Does that include moving the road? I'm assuming that would happen, right? Okay.
I'm thinking it is, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Is that actively
But that
being
makes sense.
done?
Where's the
Yes.
8 acres?
Yes.
I talked to, Willie was working on it last week. He was supposed to call me today, and he did not.
It's all right.
I haven't connected with
It's been raining.
Willie the secretary,
Okay.
but it is being worked on.
Shoot.
He's finishing it up.
Well, that's good. So that's another good piece of paper to have.
And we've discussed the road because we can't turn it too sharp because a lot of log trucks use that road in the winter and they need a running start up.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's
again,
all been
that's where-
discussed. I've discussed that with the county.
Right, I didn't know that, but that's another good thing to say, all right, well, where does it work?
Yeah, so we gotta bring it around. We can't bend it too far.
Okay.
We've all seen big trucks have to back down that hill in the winter.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Lots of nightmare.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Where are they walking?
Yeah, wow.
Off into the club.
Oh,
Bisbee.
interesting. Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
What's our role going out from here other than an RFP and then as a board
As a board, you would put out like maybe an RFQ,
or RFQ?
and then you could select, have an interview and select somebody based on criteria. It's not price.
Right.
You would have to come up with a price on the land whenever this gets started. You gotta tell the developer, I want X. Developer's definitely gonna ask you to do a pilot. I mean, that's just every municipality. But right now, it's $1 more than what you're getting. You're not getting anything for it now.
Right.
So whatever.
And I assume us adjusting the price would help with that pro
Exactly.
forma.
Exactly, helps
Exactly.
perform it and to help with the pilot.
with the
Again,
pilot.
Help with
if
the
the
pilot.
cost is
Right.
reasonable, you can keep a little higher pilot.
Yeah.
So we work with formerly Cap 21, now Living ADK, we work with their housing committee. So I think what the board's gonna have to do is select people from here, people from their group that will be representative. I don't know if that'll be that advisory panel, that might still morph
Not
into
there yet.
something different,
You're
yeah.
not there yet.
But at least so that we can move forward cohesively.
Sure.
They have other irons in the fire. This is our primary focus right now. Well, in this minute, it's our primary focus.
Right.
But yeah. So okay. All right.
Good. I would keep the ball running. You guys are on the
We
right
are.
track. I would.
Yeah.
I would.
Definitely on the right track. We're available for, questions or thoughts. Hey, we thought about this afterwards. What do you think? I'll leave some brochures and cards and things for you. We're open to just be, again, help and assist any way we can, whether we're the developer or somebody else. More than willing to help you any way we can.
Okay.
How do you fight the projects attitude?
NIMBY.
Maybe call it what
We're
you
not.
want.
We're not going there.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
not going there.
Difficult.
I mean, it is tough.
It is.
I mean, I have been there screaming it.
Positively supportive of it.
That's all I can do. That's what you're not
Any other questions? Any other questions?
I think somebody's in the back row.
Oh.
So Dave got to look at that.
Who does?
The gentleman has the management company of the 6,000 properties.
Yes.
Are any of those properties true workforce housing?
Yes.
And you have no problems enforcing that it is strictly workers, that other people don't get in?
None whatsoever. We've never been cited for it from the state agencies in the state of New York. I'm doing one in Buffalo. I just signed actually for the Esso Silo Apartments in Buffalo, which will be an old grain mill converted into a little community, into all workforce housing. It's more based around the arts and cultural and senior centers encompassed with it. It'll be a great little community that they're building in the downtown Buffalo area on the waterfront. And it's very exciting. The state of New York is behind it, and they're actually funding over almost $40 million into it.
Because, there's no question that our community needs workforce housing, but we don't need something more that's going to put burden on our infrastructure.
Exactly. And that's, I think, if you stay with the 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, I think it's a nice mix. It, fills the need for the workforce in the community that you're in right now currently. It doesn't create a overburden on your system. The location you've chosen is a great walkable green community. It's accessible to everything. And the money comes back, these people who are living there, back into your community, into your stores, into your restaurants, and your, shoot
Volunteerism.
markets. Volunteerism, again. You start that synergy is what you want to start, and just create that you want people to live in your community again who can afford to live in the community. Not just the $1 million homes and you need the guy who works at the town
We don't have the
garage.
services
You need people,
without
the service industry, like I was joking earlier,
Services.
Tony Harper's, take the menu, walk to the bar, and wait an hour and a half for your food. I mean, they don't have the servers or the people to do it nowadays. It's a shame. But that's a problem that everybody is seeing. And I don't see it going away in Old Forge anytime soon.
Well, see, if you put your order in before you came here, you can go sit down and eat.
It'll be ready when you leave though.
All right. Anything else?
No, thank you.
No,
I'm
that's good. Thank you.
sure there'll be, yeah.
That was plenty of.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Continue.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Wheels
Dylan.
turning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Can we leave them?
Safe
You want
trip.
some cards?
Don't we leave?
We'll leave a couple more.
Yeah, I've got
Just in case.
Now you keep the survey up.
Thank you.
You're a marked man.
All right.
You're welcome. Well nag, Willie.
A couple there. Actually, just in case.
Thank you.
And again, any questions or anything can help you just for even just thought process, don't hesitate to call me.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David, if you've got an extra one, if you do have an extra one, I'll take one.
We'll figure it out. Let me look at it and I'll get it to you.
Spoil it. Make copies.
Yeah, we'll make copies.
Just spoil it.
Okay. All right. Let's get down to business. Last meeting, we tabled a motion or the resolution to install town internet and phones through the bank network through ADK Techs. So what I'm looking for is to move that resolution forward again. We did meet with a representative Chuck, and he explained their proposal to us at the board, audit of claims meeting. So I'd like to, would the board entertain a resolution to enter into a contract with ADK Tech to upgrade the internet and phones in all the town buildings? It's a pleasure of the board. After you read it all.
I was gonna say, you got a lot of wordage you're reading.
Well, that was the same, I copied it from last month.
Dave, what was the reason we tabled it?
So that we can listen.
So we could talk to them. I couldn't answer all your questions.
Okay.
1540 you guys thought was a
Yeah,
year, but it's
that's monthly.
1540 a month. That was a big question there.
Yeah.
And I think you said it in here.
Yeah, and I changed that in here.
It seems like, you know, I liked what they, it gives us a lot more control and flexibility to do other things in the community.
It will improve our internet.
So,
Yeah.
I'm definitely in favor of it.
And again, they're going to network all the buildings
Yeah,
together.
that's what you're saying, but you
I'll
got a
second
motion.
it.
Who's the motion?
Kurt.
Kurt. Barb second. Any other discussion?
I would like to ask the question of, where is this money, do you have to come up with this money right away? Does it come out of our budget?
I did fill out the ARPA, the Rescue Plan Act paperwork, and received $182,000 on the rescue plan. We received one check for $91,000 for this year. One of the things I can spend it on is internet infrastructure.
So there you go.
So I will apply the rescue plan money towards the internet infrastructure of the buildings, the town buildings here.
So that'll pay for the initial
That'll pay for the installation.
installation, and then our monthly bill, we have to remember that we have, while we budget.
We get
for
the
internet-
Budget less.
Every month.
We budget less,
Right.
because this will be a savings
Budget
over
less will
what
save
we're,
money.
right now, we're up to about 34, between 34 and 35,000 a year that we pay out for internet and phone charges.
But I heard they were gonna lower that.
No. Yeah, and so this at 1,500 a month is gonna run us about 18,000 a year.
So one other thing that we had discussed was entering into a contract. He said they don't typically do contracts, but we thought maybe it would be beneficial to us to see if we could secure that
So we can work out the
monthly,
contract.
yeah,
And he said they'd give us up to 5 years contract,
yes.
Yeah,
so I
And-
would amend that motion that contract for 5 years.
okay.
5 years.
5-year contract,
Does Kurt need to amend the motion?
yes.
I'll make the amendment.
Do you agree with that?
Sure, yeah, no, that was my concern too, is everything sounds great now, but then, you know, 2 months later, all of a sudden after they install it, we're doubling,
Right.
you know, like that, that's obviously a concern.
Yeah,
Didn't mean to step on anybody.
No,
that's okay.
The other thing you need to do before budget, we need to figure out how it's gonna be billed. Because right now, each
Yes.
department has their own line for this. So at budget time, if you're allowing a line for all these phones, you need to, if it's gonna be one line, we need to get the money away from all the departments and put it in one line. Or this has to be billed different.
I can do it 2 ways. I can work up a percentage of how it's,
Yeah,
where the bill is now,
and just pull it from each of those departments,
and
is
then,
that too?
and then break it down that way each month.
I mean, it's gonna be a standard figure
Right.
each month, so
Right,
that's.
or
what
we
it's-
could adjust the budget to put this money in the bill, because it applies to all the bills.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's
but
2 ways of doing it.
Yeah, you could do it that way, just before we sit here in September, could we?
Sure,
Think
yeah.
about it before we sit here?
Okay.
Well, there, we just did it.
There we go.
Okay?
I think you attach it to each one.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too, to be honest with
What's that?
Allocate it to each,
I could, yeah, it's not gonna be that hard. I had to do the same thing with the fuel.
Each department should pay, yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So I will work it into percentages,
yes,
Please, thank you.
not a problem.
appreciate it.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Gardner?
Aye.
Councilman Hale?
Aye.
Councilwoman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Ross?
you. Aye.
Supervisor Brookshire?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you.
See how this one works out.
These guys are pretty industrious.
Yeah, they seem.
And everybody I've talked to that they've done this for had high praise. What they did.
I spoke to a few people too that
Yeah.
were very thrilled.
And like I
The speed of
said,
the internet is very fast.
and I'm glad they came in and spoke to you, because I was not gonna be able to answer any of those questions.
You weren't doing a great job.
No, I admit it.
Hey, that's all right.
I
Everybody's got their expertise.
I explained to them the only computer I had in college was in 1974, and it was fortunate. So, all right. Next is a resolution authorizing purchase of some vacant land on North Street. Town boards discussed the purchase and usage of the aforementioned property on North Street and deemed it as beneficial to the town. There's been an appraisal done on the property. It is on file with the town's clerk's office right now. And would the board consider a resolution authorizing the purchase of said property as stated in the following? Would you like to read the resolution?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Whereas Sylvia K. Human owns 26.80 acres of vacant real property situated on North Street in the town of Webb, which property is known as tax map ID number 041.2-1-5. And whereas the town board of the town of Webb finds the purchase of the property would serve the interests of the residents of the town, and whereas Ms. Human has indicated a willingness to sell the property to the town of Webb, and whereas the town has sufficient unappropriated surplus funds from prior tax years to purchase the property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this board authorizes the purchase of the property on the following terms. 1, the town will enter into a contract for the sale and purchase of the property from Sylvia K. Human for a sale price not to exceed $300,000 with the customary prorations and adjustments as of closing. 2, the entire purchase price and all closing expenses shall be funded through the use of unappropriated surplus funds from prior years. And 3, that upon the adoption of this resolution, the town supervisor and town council are authorized to prepare, execute, and deliver such documents and instruments as are required to implement the purchase without further resolution of this board. That's it in a nutshell, kids.
Okay.
Can you get a discussion before
I don't.
Do your motion.
Do your motion first.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we purchase this property from a human on North Street.
All right. Mr. Ross, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Is that Kurt?
Yep.
Thank you. Now we can have a discussion.
Okay, I'm not opposed as to purchasing this piece of property. However, if we enter into a letter of intent with them to purchase the property, because this is a document to purchase, we into a letter of intent. I was informed today that there is a CFA match of 20% on that. If we get our letter of intent in file, it takes 60 days. So basically, we'd still be purchasing it. But if we purchase it, we do it now, we can't get that. So we need to.
20% CFA grant.
Yep.
Would be available to us for the purchase.
Yes.
Okay.
But we have to do it. We have to have a letter of intent filed with CFA, and then we can close on it once we file a CFA. We can't buy the property before going for a CFA.
Mm-hmm.
So, does the wording of this allow that to occur? Because it says upon adoption.
It says you're using unappropriated funds.
Right, but it doesn't exclude the opportunity to get funding, and it says that the council is authorized to prepare, execute, and deliver.
No, and I understand that, but the CFA won't fund something that we've bought already.
But this isn't already bought.
But you're actually doesn't the terminology say that this is
Contract for sale.
Contract to buy rather than letter of intent to purchase?
The letter of intent may change the parameters of everything too, because I'd have to talk to legal counsel about whether we'd have to go into a permissive referendum now if we're running grant money through state money.
And I don't know the answer to that
I don't either.
question, but it is 20%.
Okay.
Because then it would make a permissive referendum and then you have 30 days that you can't buy it.
Are we on a fast track, or is this something?
We've discussed it, and I put it in as a motion to.
And I just got this today.
Right. Mm-hmm.
As long as there's no problem with, if they aren't gonna pull it out from under us because we're taking an extra step.
We can just as easily table this for a month.
But we know we need a letter of intent.
And we can, that would be up to you guys.
Yeah, we need a letter of intent to actually apply for CFA loan.
Mm-hmm. Loan or grant?
Grant.
Okay.
Does the grant put any stipulations on how the property is used and utilized in the future?
No.
What is the grant for?
It's actually, it's for real property purchases for, the towns,
Town use.
basically.
Town
Town
usage.
use.
Okay.
Well, it certainly makes sense. I mean, it's 20%.
20%, I mean, we can make that change, letter of intent at this point, or can't we?
I wanna see clarity on the CFA stuff, so that if it's for town use, I wanna make sure that we could use it for.
That was the absolute conversation I had with them.
Okay, but just to make sure that that doesn't mean only for town if we want to.
If we wanted to develop some of it later.
Correct.
Right.
Well, they're
That
hoping we
limit
would
us.
develop it, is what they were hoping.
I just wanna see it, so I think rescind the motion and table the conversation is the best.
We can run a vote right now and vote if you want.
Well, why can't, if we're
Or
gonna
you
run a
can
vote, why don't we
rescind-
just
sorry, we
vote
have-
to have a letter of intent then?
You can
Because
rescind
there's a
the
motion on the table.
I
It's
guess
a motion
that
on
does
the table.
make some questions, because then I guess I would ask a few questions on, getting grant money. What can you do with it?
Right,
What are the
just leave it-
restrictions?
Right.
It was
Can you
purchase
sell
of
all
real
5
property.
acres,
That was a
There's
restriction,
things
it
that
had to
happen.
be purchase of real property.
I understand that.
Well, it seems like we should, there's a way for us to at least,
I'd like some more.
vote on, going into getting a letter of intent, basically entering the negotiation process of, or the, moving this forwards. We should vote on that, so at least we can have the conversation with them and start getting the documentation together, because we would still need to get the letter of intent done then, right?
But we have to finish this.
Back to
Finish up what's on the table.
Right.
We'd finish up what's on the table right now. So,
So since Kurt made the motion, he can.
would you like to rescind
He
it?
can rescind.
I made a motion.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
Mike. Oh, Mike made the, I'm on the wrong
Well, if
paper.
Mike who?
that's what we think we should do, then yes, I mean, right?
It's 30 days, could get us 20% back, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, if we can do that, that would be superb, so,
Sure.
yeah.
So if you, but I need authorization to send a letter of intent.
And the next motion,
That'll
we'll
be
do
Right, you need
that.
to rescind first and then
So,
start
would you like
fresh.
to rescind your motion?
So I guess I need to make a motion that I rescind my motion to purchase the property. on North
That's
Street.
okay.
To purchase.
Due to the recent,
Who's gonna second that?
I make the motion that we send a letter.
No,
no,
wait,
we gotta
finish
eliminate
this.
this.
We need a second.
Oh, you're seconding it?
Need a second on Mike's motion.
Yeah, I'll second
Just
that
send
then.
Kurt.
Okay, so we got a,
Well, that went up and down.
That's all right.
It's not a bad thing.
Worst things have happened.
No, it's not.
alright, this passed, this didn't pass, this we rescinded.
Give me a roll call vote on the rescind.
The rescinding one?
Yeah.
Councilman Gardner?
Aye.
Councilman Hale?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Ross?
All right.
Supervisor Bergschis?
Aye.
Alright, so we got 5 ayes on the rescinding.
Okay. Now that we've cleared the air.
Alright,
would-
now we're starting over again.
Under this topic that we were discussing,
Yes.
I would like to send a letter of intent to Sylvia H. Human for the purchase of her 26.8 acres of vacant property, real property.
Is it 8 acres or 80?
26.8.
It's 8?
26.8.
Because I said 80 earlier.
Well, that is .80. You did it.
Alright,
correct.
send, okay, for purchase,
Letter of intent to Sylvia.
purchase price?
What did we miss?
Are you gonna put the purchase price?
I
on?
had, I
Yeah,
had worded like the
300,000.
other one of not to exceed 300,000.
Yep, oh, yep.
So same.
Okay. I didn't hear that.
You wanna leave that?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Not to exceed 300,000. Okay, send a letter of intent for the purchase of, not to
Is there
exceed.
anything else that
Okay,
should be
I've got
in
a
that
motion.
Oh, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Is there anything else that should be in that, you think, while we're making this motion?
Well, it actually should be everything in this document, with the exception of purchase, it should just say letter of intent.
Okay.
That's all. So we should use
That's all,
the
just
same,
so-
the same format, just with letter of intent in lieu of purchase. So we're letter of intent to purchase.
No.
Alright, so I'm gonna do this one, leave it.
You know
That's
what?
fine.
Let's leave it at the letter of intent right now to purchase,
Right.
and let me look into
Then we'll
the
find the details.
town. Let me look into town law
Okay,
as for what my options are for payment. Yeah.
all right, I'll second the motion then.
Okay, Don and Bob. Okay. We're leaving it with a letter of intent, got it.
Where'd you get this information?
Look at the town law.
It was Don and Barb.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
And then so this one's going.
Is there any more discussion?
Well, I just asked them where this information came from.
IDA. The IDA was here today.
Want a roll call vote?
Yes, I like a roll call vote, thank you.
Councilman Gardner?
Aye.
Councilman Hale?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Ross?
Aye.
Supervisor Brookshire?
Aye.
Okay, so we got 5 ayes.
All right, so I got my work cut out again.
Oh, it won't be that bad.
Is it?
May I ask, where is the 26 acres located? Is it beyond the bridge or before the bridge?
Across the street from the pavilion.
Right-hand side, across from the Hill Rent Center.
Mm-hmm.
May I
Tim
ask,
had it listed 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
may I ask, what are we using it for? For town use?
Yeah, news.
What's that mean?
We've only,
Well,
we've
that's-
only begun conversations on it, but there's potential for parking, there's potential for other recreation uses, and there's potential for, development of maybe housing. Those are all big
It's one of
potentials.
the last pieces of property that you really can utilize,
Which is-
that's touching.
I've been in meetings where it's been brought up. I mean, I just wondered what, you said town use, I just wondered what we were using it for.
We don't have
Racetrack.
specific plans.
No,
but
not,
it's-
not a racetrack.
The park closest to the road would make good parking.
We always struggle with parking.
Yeah, it's always struggle with parking. All kinds of recreational possibilities. We're trying to develop that into a recreational area. All right. Any other discussion? Mr. Gardner, Councilman Gardner.
Yeah, I don't have too much. I mean, been talking to Berkeley County Health Department there, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some changes coming up here soon again with COVID and everything. That everything is starting to heat up a lot more again. So I'm sure there'll be some additional things coming out very soon, probably. That we'll have to adjust to. Other than that, to be honest with you, I've been pretty crazy this month, so worked on a bunch of things, but that's about all I can really talk about right now, I guess. So, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hale?
Yes, I actually had an opportunity to speak with John Pizek and Leanne and Tom Bono. They're very interested in our waterfront revitalization program we've got going on here, so they're going to be reaching out to, and Nancy sent them the original Elan file. That's a good thing. It's a good step right there moving forward. There is funding, CFA stuff. The 20% is right there. Same thing as real property, but that's easy. But there is some other grant monies that sound pretty promising, with like $500,000 here and there. So which is pretty huge for what we're looking at. So very optimistic, but not going to count my eggs. So the other one was, I did have a conversation with, there's a thing called TAP New York, which is the New York State Brewers Association. And they usually have it at Hunter Mountain every year. And they are looking to possibly relocate to Macaulay Mountain. And they bring in about 1,000 people plus, 150 brewery vendors. So I wanted to know if the town board was interested in maybe continuing that conversation.
Is it you or is it the CAA?
CAA, well, they would be renting it. They would be renting it from the town.
I see.
No, I'm not renting any.
When would it be?
When is it?
This would be the last weekend in April.
Perfect.
Shirley's available. I was thinking wedding time is what I was
No,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, not a lot in April, probably.
Not a lot in April. I was more worried you were gonna say fall. Is that a lot?
I know.
Is that something we might be interested in?
Sure.
Sure.
Worth looking into, that's for sure.
So CAA is not affiliated with it then?
They're not. Would you like them to be?
No, I'm just
Okay.
curious. I mean, I don't
I
care
can
for
ask,
that.
I can ask. Mike can ask. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Yule.
Hi.
Hi.
I just, first I want to thank everybody who helped with the cleanup on First Lake after the explosion the other day. There was a tremendous representation of volunteers. Don and I were both up there on the day that all the folks came out.
They were awesome.
It was pretty spectacular, yeah. So big thank you. They did an excellent job. Kurt and I have talked a little bit about the waterfront revitalization plan, and we did talk with the board on Monday about the funding opportunities. So before you get too far ahead on grant opportunity.
This is just a fishing exploration, because we
Right.
didn't know where the money was coming from, so I had to go find out
Right.
how we're gonna get it. So
Right.
now
Well,
we can proceed.
Right, we did talk about the fact that having to do the grant process is really, could be expensive and laborious to do. So we need to talk more about it, that's all, before
But at
we,
the same token, if we have any expenditure, there's also 20% CFA. That's now, we could actually do with or if we develop a plan and put a letter, not a letter of intent, bad word, but if we have a program that starts to move forward, once we acknowledge that we're looking for that, and then we can move on, and then we might be able to get 20% back on the tail end of it. So,
and that's great, I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same
no,
page.
you guys are gonna steer the bus on that. I was just trying to find out where the money is.
All right, and Kurt's gonna reach out to the gentleman from the Hudson Black River
Yeah.
Water Authority to meet with him before he comes to our meeting in November or whenever it's gonna come.
November or September, or October?
Right, it's,
Summer's
they were
later in the
gonna,
fall.
they were gonna come up when they had everything together.
Right.
We're ready to
It's a
present.
moving target.
Right. We did meet with Stevie on Monday about Holly Mountain, and he is moving forward with pursuing a lift from, help me out with the ski area that's got it. Is it Turin? No.
Woods Valley.
Woods Valley, thank you. They're all the same in my brain, unfortunately. They're using it this season, but it would become available next year, so it gives Steve time to start looking at all the things that he needs to do. He's already been working with Andy Getty, so we are moving forward on that. We talked about the splice that needs to be done on Mac's back. The cable is reached its life expectancy. He's gonna try and get one more year out of it because we don't have money in the budget right now to do the expense of what it would take to fix that. So he's gonna see if we can get one more year. At the very worst, Mac's back lift would not operate for one season if we can't, but we'll make plans for the following year to make sure that that is done, so we don't lose that area for skiing. This is just catching people up on
Well, and
stuff
after
that
that
we've talked
conversation
about.
with Steve, I think, typically me, when I get home, I think about things, and I would like to talk to him a little bit more about that situation and what's going on up there, to keep a conversation
Yep.
going with him.
Yep, he's got a few irons in the fire, so,
Well, he had some items, he had questions that were asked that he needed to actually investigate and check out.
Right, right.
yeah.
And there certainly is a question, is it needed, is there other options? You know, talking about this other lift, there's, all these things started to turn
Well, but
around
that-
in my brain.
Well, the one big option was possibly reducing the load on the cable,
Right,
you know,
right.
so, and that's something, the question has to be asked.
So, yeah,
You just short-circuited my train of
sorry.
thought.
Damn it.
Doesn't take much, I'll tell you.
I'd do the same, because if you went to the next item, I would have forgot that.
I know, there was something, well, go ahead, Mike, I'll just interrupt you when it comes to
There you
that.
go.
You're more than welcome.
Oh, I wanted to acknowledge that we received the plan, a recreation plan for Macaulay from Mike Farmer, which we definitely need to sit down and talk
Work
about
backward.
and prioritize, because it's a big wish list.
But raising the height, the summit, you don't know how we're gonna.
Helicopter.
Right,
Go to the next
What,
mountain.
stretch it.
so thank you, Mike, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we did indeed find it, so. Go ahead, that's all I can.
That's all you got?
Yeah, no, it's-
Councilman Robbins.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat a little bit of the stuff that came up Monday, because I thought it should be at the regular board meeting. So, our dog person's car, Lisa Bennett's car, I did speak with her, she's gonna get it fixed, and then we can discuss what's gonna happen there.
I called her today, Morris is gonna pick it up tomorrow and take it down to the bus garage.
Okay,
Critter's gonna fix it.
okay, great, thank you. Just
I'm tired of staring at it every time I come down my
I
hill.
know, and it shouldn't be like that. I do really honestly would like to have Corey come in front of the board, if we can invite him and talk about this plant and where we're at with searching for money. I just watched the news tonight and there's some $1 trillion infrastructure money that's supposedly going out. If that's anything part of that, I mean,
Well,
Other
it'd be
than that,
nice to have him come up and
Yeah.
have John Pizak come there so too. Because he seems to be the one with the first thing, so maybe
yeah,
those two
I'd
guys.
certainly like to,
Chat pretty
Mr.
hard.
Pizak on the line there and see if he can come through with some of this stuff.
That's what this whole operation is right now.
I'm ready for him to say, oh yes, I did get you money. So
Those guys
we'll
love it up
see.
here.
I took a ride with Scott up to Stillwater. There's a problem. The guys that collect the garbage up there are having quite a situation. If you guys have ever seen the garbage garage that's
Shed.
up there,
Shed,
it's
Shed.
very, very disgusting. It's a nice building, but when you open the door,
Hold on.
the whole side, well, it's two sides. One side is the recycle, which when talking to Scott, I think we can kind of neaten that up and fix that. But it would be nice if there was a dumpster there for recycle. And the garbage side, all it is everybody and their brother throws garbage bags in there. Restaurants, campers, everybody.
And not going
goes
into
up
the
there.
dumpster?
There's no dumpster.
So they gotta handbag all that out?
So yes, when you
Yeah,
get to the bottom, it's very, very bad. So I talked to Terry Perkins, it's on his land, but he kind of takes care of it. And I'm gonna go up and meet with him, try to come up with some solutions, because our guys that pick up garbage, they can't.
Does a dumpster fit, would a dumpster fit in the building?
In the building, no,
No.
unfortunately, no. So
But you need a big one, because it's probably.
it's a lot, and I think they probably go up there 2 times a week. I think we answer that, unfortunately. I think 2 times a week. But it's just a situation that those guys are getting a little frustrated, certainly with the hot weather and all that. I certainly wouldn't want to. And you got it, it's all in this big, huge area, and then there's only just a man door. Get it, so it's. I'll get out, but I'm
Work on that.
trying to work on something to help them guys out. Ran into a gentleman on Hollywood Hills Road today, asked if there could be some sort of a fence, orange fence, across the property where the house that had the accident there. Because I guess people that are going by are stopping and they're looking and he thought that it would be a great idea if there was a fence there. So I ended up calling Pat Russell and said, Pat, it's a county thing, can you make that happen? He said he'd call the county guys. So I thought that was.
There was a restoration company that got in touch with me Andy today.
Right, and I talked to Andy
There's
this afternoon.
Start cleaning that up.
Yeah, by Friday
needed-
or Saturday, they were gonna be clean.
Yeah, he needed it classified a certain way, so all of that, carte blanche.
Yeah, non-hazardous material.
Yeah, he was coming there, I wasn't.
But
getting
if the
really
fence is
involved.
there, though, they can move it.
Right,
It's not a
it's
problem.
just because it is right to the roadside, and I guess he said people were stopping.
Everybody wants to see it.
Well, the only other thing I had, Dave, is the money that when we talked about redoing the streetlights for LED, the money that we have to come up with for that.
Okay.
It doesn't have to come out of nothing, what do you mean nothing?
We don't put any money up. NIPA, it's still with the PSC for approval for the sale. Comes to National Grid. Once that happens, the amount that's determined that we owe National Grid, NIPA will cut us a check, put it in our account, we pay for it with that. And then the payback is structured to fit our budget amount that we have for streetlights every year. Pay it on. Does that make sense?
Our bottom line on the budget's gonna stay the same.
The budget's gonna stay exactly the
So we pay
same,
them off, then it should-
and then it goes way down. So,
Just make sure that we weren't using.
no money out of our pocket.
Or anything that.
No money comes out of our pocket. New York Power Authority will, and every once in a while, they'll call me. to see if I've heard from the PSC. I was told 4 to 6 months. They move really fast down there. 4 to 6 months for approval for the sale is the average. And it's been down there for several months, so I'm expecting to get something straight. But no, there's no money comes out of our pocket. They will cut us a check, we will deposit it, we will pay for the streetlights to National Grid with that money. They will come up with the installation and then structure the payment to fit what we budget for streetlights on. Okay. And actually, we get a little cash back every year because it didn't work out correctly. So I think we get like $1,200 back off our budget. We've got the budget back on. So yeah, so you know, don't worry, because I'm starting to think about budgets.
But there was, one more thing. Because I watched the news finally, they're talking about this big infrastructure money and everything, and then they showed all these bridges and everything. And unfortunately, when Route 28 bridge got done, it wasn't wide enough to put the snowmobiles across. So I wonder if there's anybody we can talk to see if maybe they could fit into fixing that. Because that's an extremely dangerous spot for snowmobiles.
That's a heavy lift.
Sure it is. We had, many moons ago, Robert and I stood with the state guys and we looked at that bridge everywhere and came back, absolutely, you can widen that, no problem. I think at the time, the price to do that was $2 million. So we said, oh, okay. Probably won't do that.
Now it's gonna be 4 or 5.
But why they did that, maybe they just didn't want to do the job. Because that's a lot of money.
Nah, not necessarily, because you have to reroute traffic.
All they were talking is taking the one side that they're on.
Sounds easily.
So anyways, I don't know who you talk to about things like that.
I'll see ADOT. That one from 2 years ago. On the trails.
And they've been working on it, there is some issues with it. And there's some deeps in it,
And that might be a problem, that might qualify for the infrastructure bill. A lot of it, from what I could see, was gonna go into roads, bridges, highways.
They did say wastewater.
They had some, but not,
They did
not
say wastewater.
I think considering how bad it is.
We'll see. And a lot of that money came from all the infrastructure money they offered before they never got used. Okay.
Hey, can I ask one question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you hear anything from Brian regarding the shelter until?
I haven't yet. He and I have been we're back and forth all day with this purchase. So I didn't get a chance to
If you think
ask.
that
And he's been in court.
ask him so it doesn't get lost on his desk. And it'd be nice to be able to move that forward while some of these people are still here. I know that we can do Zoom call or will, in fact, but it'd be nice to do it with stuff.
Okay. No problem. Okay. Nancy?
Of course.
I remember.
Few FYIs, the Inlet, or just had nods, Inlet would like to borrow our banjo for the Fall Festival, which is September 18th and 19th. They'll pick it up on Friday, move it, insurance is in place, so that's just FYI, we've loaned it every year to them. Fireworks are coming up for Max Cohen on 8/14, up in the barge there on First Lake like he did last year. We have the insurance in place, everything's all good.
Oh boy, more fireworks.
More fireworks. And then CAA is having the fireworks on September 5th, lakefront, traditional. Same thing, insurance is in place, it's all American Fireworks are doing both these displays. And then I do need a resolution. Utica Zoological Society would like to sell raffle tickets in the town of Webb as a moneymaker, they do it every year. But we do need a motion to give them permission to sell raffle.
I'll make the motion to allow the Utica Zoo to sell tickets.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved.
I think. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. All right, I have a couple things I just want to mention. I'll be quick. I put in front of you 3 letters. One was a letter that was forwarded to me from Senator Tedisco to go to the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation concerning transportation problems in the Beaver River, to be succinct and terse. And Scott and Rusty Thompson call me constantly, asking if we can help them out, try and get something in there, and it's a concern for them, because there are a month or two every year where they can't get on the lake, they can't use the water, and they're not allowed on the rails now. So, because they're being developed, and they got a letter from the Adirondack Railroad telling them to stay off, now that they're developing it and going to use it. So I drafted a letter similar to it to go into DOT, and I also included a third one that I received from the Obermans with the same concern. And basically all we're asking for it's a travel corridor. We're asking for some sort of solution to make that travel corridor available to some vehicles. I mean, we can't, as far as it goes now, we couldn't get an ambulance in there if we had to. They couldn't get medical help.
And like I said before, if we had
Fire.
a fire up there,
Police.
we'd have to wait for it to come to us.
The police, when they have to respond to that, if they are able to go by boat there, they have to take it to one of the Grassy Point docks and then walk 7 miles back to Beaver River to respond. So I think it's a reasonable request. We'll see what happens. So that's just to mention that. That's I'm going to send that in to them.
I would send it.
Yeah, well, definitely. I met recently. We've talked about another trailhead to go to Bald Mountain from this direction, to start down around where the rocks came down off the cliff years ago. There's a little parking area there. Put a road in down to there, and then up onto the mountain there's a log landing where they did some logging, which connects to the trail system. So we went up and looked it over I went up with DEC, and Kurt went with me, and Mike Farmer. And we took a look, and it's viable. So I met with DOT about using that little landing area on the road, that little parking area, as the entrance on and off the road. And what they would do is then we would have to build a road to, if you go up that way, you'll see a road that comes off just the end of the guardrails and heads down to a gate and then up to the log landing up there that was there. We would extend that road over to where that parking lot is, so that they could use that. That gives them a good line of sight both ways to get on and off Route 28.
Where the rock slide is.
Where the rock slide is. All right, that gives them the 500 feet they need both ways for visuals to get on and off 28.
So didn't they shut that down because of the rock slide and said it was a dangerous area?
No, they didn't seem, no. DOT was might have been.
Just because it was garbage and it was just.
I mean, DOT was amenable to it. They had no problem with it. They actually said if we did go ahead with it, they would extend the guardrail down for me. Although I talked to, was it you, Mike, today? There is somebody across the road there that uses that to get onto the snowmobile trail, so I would ask them to leave some sort of opening in the guardrail right there.
Oh yeah, there's a couple people that do that.
But anyway, so DOT they were amenable to the idea. I talked to a couple of I talked to Randy Young and who was up here today? Scott Healy. And Scott, he suggested Randy did, smart growth grants. That this would be a good fit for the smart growth grants. So I don't have to task one of the departments again, highway and DPW, to do all this. So I'm going to look into it. I'm going to see if I can get some idea on prices and see if we can apply for a smart growth grant up there if they ever open them up. They aren't open right now. On the 26th of this month, we're going to host a county supervisors meeting up here. I was going to do it at Macaulay Mountain, but we were going to. The Mountainside Restaurant offered to close off their deck and part of their restaurant and service that way, which would avail us a bar.
So this is separate from what Linda's working on?
Yes. No, this has nothing to do with it. Every month I go to a county supervisors meeting somewhere in the county.
I see.
German Flats or Herkimer. So this month it's up here.
I'm sorry.
I managed to drag their butts up here. So you guys are invited to it if you want. I'll have more information later. The 26th, Thursday. You can kind of celebrate the end of summer.
Is it a meeting?
It's a meeting. We're going. Usually we'll bring in a couple of speakers. Now, the last meeting we had was down at the Alamo in Poland. The two speakers were Jim Bono and Jim Wallace, and a woman from the county that handles the land bank for the county. So, previously we did one down German Flats, and the speaker was the fellow that runs the historical in Herpelink. Very entertaining.
Is this Thursday?
Thursday.
Yeah.
August 26th or September 26th?
August. I'm afraid it's going to be a little dry because what we're going to do is there won't be a speaker. We're going to discuss how to spend this ARPA money, rescue plan money, because it's very confusing. Just I was lucky because we have a water district, we have a sewer district, and those both fit into the parameters of where you could spend it. So, and we could definitely use it. It worked out well for me. And that's about all I have. So, anything else? All right, so I'd like to just get together with you guys very quickly about a collective bargaining agreement that's coming
I'm
up.
gonna open up the floor first before we do that.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Anybody on the floor have any? Yes.
I just want to say that CAP 21 is coordinating the Meet the Candidate Night at View on September 15th. Probably like a 7 to 9 p.m. event, inviting the candidates to be there by 6:30. I have initially sent out emails to all of the candidates, and we'll send out a more formal invite very soon. And we'll start
You said at the
gathering
View?
questions.
At View, you said?
Yes.
Good, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Robin, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you CAP 21 or are you Living 80K? What are we
Well-
supposed to call you?
We're still, it's going to be a transition of people. I mean, CAP 21 necessarily as the organization right now is not going away, but saying Living ADK powered by CAP 21, at least until people get a clear understanding that it's one and the same, but that's our new brand.
Okay.
So it's kind of a transitional thing.
Okay.
We're looking at, getting a new sign. We are going to be launching a new website, hopefully in less than 30 days, under that new name, new station and all that stuff. So we had, in the summer guide, we had a couple of advertisements that we paid for, Living ADK. I don't know if anybody saw that, but that is us. And so, yeah, it's going to be a transitional thing.
So we'll just say formally.
And the reason is just to change the brand to...
Well, just to, I guess engage an expanded population to understand what we do, because, there's people in town that say, CAP 21, what do they do? Who are they? And we've been, this is our 20th year. So we're just trying to appeal, I think, to the younger generation, creating this new, more
That's the third
vibrant.
name of that, though.
Huh?
It was Communities 2000.
Communities 2000 and
Well, now we're gonna say
official.
Living 80K, who was that?
Well, you gotta do something, so.
Gotta try
Anyway, we're excited about it. I think
No, I'm
it's
just
everything
curious as
to live, work, and play in the central Adirondacks. It's kind of a.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? Yes, Steve.
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
Okay, as some of you guys were on the board, some of you weren't, 3 years ago I came about the short-term rentals. And what triggered my thoughts was the news article I saw about Cooperstown, that the gentleman said it was a good thing that they put laws in place to help protect their community, make it somewhere people wanted to live and could live. Committee has been formed, we're working on laws, we all know. And Barb, you asked about the lawyer, so I cut that one out already. The one thing that's different about the law that we've been working on compared to a lot of other communities, they have restrictions. You have to live in the house X amount of days a year to have the right to rent it. They're not permitted in residential neighborhoods, which in our situation is not even possible. At the last committee meeting, I brought up about how the short-term rentals are snowballing in our area. And everybody on the committee agreed with my concerns, but if really isn't in the scope of what that committee was formed for or what the law that we're working on would address. So my question is to the board, does the board feel that the short-term rentals are really snowballing and it's almost really getting out of control and consuming our community? And what are your thoughts on what can be put in place to curtail it? Because at the rate they're going, we're not going to have a community left. I mean, a perfect example is Rip, Kip, and Sam lived their whole life, family here, and they were forced out. And it almost made me think of the Indians when the white man came here and forced them out for financial gain. And that's what's happening in our community. People are coming in and forcing us out to line their pockets. And we're not even gaining anything out of it. You know, the state's talking about enacting sales tax on it, but how much are we going to gain out of it? And is it really going to help us that much?
Can I give an answer to that?
Yep.
A partial answer anyway. I emailed everybody the other day because I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, now another of my friends also thinking about Sam and Rick leaving, but one of my friends is leaving town now because he has to leave his house because they're gonna rent it and he can't afford to buy property here. So I emailed Andy because someone from the community sent me this thing saying that the town of Salina passed a law saying that they were limiting, not allowing any more residential locations to become short-term rentals. And I asked Andy, and Andy said, will not hold up in court. And this has gone to court, and the person who sent it thought that it was upheld, meaning he thought that the community, the town, their end was upheld. It wasn't. The renters, the owners of the rentals, their fight was upheld. So we can't, this is the problem, we can't legally do these laws. They're all gonna get fought in court. No matter what we try to do, we're taking away people's rights to use their property. So I hear you 100%, I do, but we're trying to do what will be acceptable, you know, so that we can get something on the books to try and corral this. But we can't, there's stuff we can't do because it's not constitutional, period.
Well, our zoning already says that you can't run a business in a residential neighborhood. And a lot of these people are buying properties for the sole purpose of renting them out by the night. That's a business.
And
I agree with you there, but I'm gonna step on.
Yep.
But the state has not classified it, has not given that definition. So right now, that's still their house. So it's technically not a business. Until they actually change the classification, Steve, that's the problem. I mean, because I hear what you're saying, because some of these places, some of these people have never even been here. They just buy the houses to do that.
So if they're realizing a financial gain, how can it not be considered a business?
Well, and I agree with you, and I agree with you. The problem is, the state of New York doesn't.
The fact that we pay the same taxes, property taxes, that person right next door to us that's making all this money.
You know,
Just see what happens. You have to bring that up with the state.
I know that.
Assemblyman.
I realize
But there is something coming with the state though, because
That'll show that it's a business.
That's what's gonna actually change it's gonna change it quite quickly if they do follow through. Because they've see that a lot of these properties don't pay any sales tax. Oh, they're saying they're losing a lot of money. So when the state drops their law on it, it won't be a 5-page thing that Barb and I and you put together. It'll be a book, and it'll be a reckoning when that happens. And if you don't have something in place, there's no grandfathering, nothing like that. You're gonna own the state, and that'll be the reckoning. When will that happen? I don't know.
I believe our zoning does define what businesses are, not only in what district, but I think there is room in zoning to define what constitutes a business in some of the language regarding particularly in-home businesses, small things like a hairdresser or a massage person or consultant or somebody who, I think our zoning language has some examples of defining business and not having to rely on the state for that definition.
The problem is, you don't go to court here, you go to the state Supreme Court, and they will work with the state law definition, not the town definition. Theirs supersedes ours.
we're in a non-defensible position most of the time.
That's really the bottom line.
So we enact a law, they challenge it in court, we pay for the litigation, and we lose. Is what the bottom line is.
There are a lot of communities with much more restrictive.
That's why people should have hopped on board this one when we put it through, because it was really not restrictive.
Most of the restrictions enacted in Lake Placid have been challenged in court and they've lost.
Have they lost?
Yes.
Huh.
And we actually thought we were being smart by
I just read the article.
dragging their feet on it so that we could watch the lawsuits come that other townships were experiencing.
Sure, I've heard that a lot.
And so we honestly thought we put together something that was simplified, that would keep us, would guide the community and guide the rental process, and give a safe environment for people that are renting, and be out of harm's way.
Controls in place.
Right, enough controls in place, and we've referenced enough other codes, you know, the building code as well as, all the codes that are applied within the sanitary code. So when we had all that together, we thought we really had something that would be simple and effective, and it would be palatable. But obviously we didn't. And now we look back and we're looking at, because we started with a boilerplate from what they had up there, and now their lawsuits are finally going through and they're losing. The complainants, which are the people that own the properties, they're actually being vindicated and being overturned, which is unfortunate.
I was at the meeting, with the pitchforks and the torches, and the one where everybody sort of didn't like the legislation that our town put forward.
That was both meetings.
I only went to one. I went to the one that seemed particularly pitchforky in retrospect. But you are making amendments to that.
Correct.
Right, and that is now with Brian. Is that the
Again,
lawyer?
Yeah, we've actually retooled a bunch of items in it, which made it even more palatable.
Right.
But even he has advised us that our where we are is still undefensible.
To have a permit, essentially, is indefensible.
I didn't know that.
Even he advised us that we'd probably lose in court with just what little we have.
But we're hoping what people will see is to get something going, because it addresses having contact information for when there's problems, and of course the septic systems being up to speed, and parking, and bedroom safety and all those things. We're hoping that it will be acceptable even to the people who don't want any more legislation enough that, and it ultimately, I mean, if we do it and they take us to court, I guess we fight in court, but I think we have to get something on the books.
I think it's going to be really important for the people of the community to look like they're fighting for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a desperation that is so palpable amongst, since that story came out on NCPR about Ricky and Sam, I don't know how many people's rent has been raised. I know of at least 4 people in 1 week after that story came out whose rent was raised or they told they had to move.
But this law here is probably not going to affect that particular situation. And I
No,
appreciate
it isn't. It isn't.
That's
long-term rentals.
But, whatever is coming down the pike, it is going to be important. It is something we're watching, I think, as a community, because we know that all the other issues hinge on our housing issue. Mm-hmm. So, it's exciting to come to a meeting and see discussions about housing. That's really, it's key, but something is gonna have to do better than what we're gonna lose in court,
Right.
Yeah,
It's a reality. So our whole evening, I mean, this is the gentleman that were here earlier and talking about that stuff. We are doing everything we can. It takes time. And this isn't something that we just started, a month ago. It's been a couple of years in conversation. And the short-term rentals has been 2 or 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just unfortunately takes time. You guys will learn, I'm telling you. It's so frustrating because you work and work and work, and you just keep getting held up. We feel the same panic that everybody else does. I'm sure, I mean, I can't speak for
Yeah,
everybody.
no,
You lose sleep over it. you
Yeah,
do.
it's
Trying to
awful,
find out different ways to readdress and reattack the situation.
but the timeline.
And then to go to a public hearing and get hammered on.
Well, that's part of the gig though.
It is, that's what we do, but it's just, you kind of go backwards, you know, think you got something going and then it's like, oh, okay.
But
Start
we made
over.
changes and we'll go back out and we'll do it again, we'll get hammered again, but it will be more to what they want, you know, what they're willing to see as the future of the town, you know, when it comes to that. And people, they have, we're giving, they need, the people that are on the other end of it, the renters, the owners, they need to actually give too. This isn't a one-sided situation. We need to come to an agreement in the middle here, and that's what we're trying to do.
I understand. I was the only person who stood up at that one meeting in
I appreciate
person
that.
and said, you know, there is actually a cost to the community, and these people are trying to do their job. But you know, I read something today on Zip It. There was this. I'm reading The Moviegoer, and the aunt says, you know, the good is always defeated, but the victory isn't always fighting for the good. You know, you go down fighting for the good. And that mindset, I think, goes a long way. And we should adopt it. Not a resolution, just a mindset.
We keep looking for answers. With life safety, we try and concentrate on life safety and the environment.
And nobody's thrown in the towel at all,
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. We've revamped it and keep moving forward.
Yep.
I think to help out what Steve's talking about, I really do feel that if the state steps in, it might make a difference. I'm not sure, but it might make a difference, because
Will help.
I know what a business that has to rent, I know what Steve goes through, I know what I go through. You have to think about if you're really gonna rent or not once you get into it, because there's costs, there's things you have to do, they're on you.
And like I said before, I'm not here because of my motel. I've been full every day all summer.
I'm certainly not.
Okay, it's what it's doing to our community. It's undermining our community at so many different levels. I mean, a year ago or so, there was an ad in the paper for housekeepers to clean the one house. They're often $30 to $50 an hour to clean these camps. How can a legitimate business compete with that and stay in business? You know, they're just undermining our community in so many different levels. It's not just sucking up the houses, it's sucking up our workforce. I mean, usually you have the college kids and the high school kids that work for the motels and work at restaurants and stuff like that. Well, shit, if they're gonna get $50 an hour,
Language.
you know,
That's a going rate too.
yeah, why would they work at a restaurant?
Right.
You know, and even though they're not businesses, you know, they're employing people. So, hello, you're a business.
Oh, they are. They are.
You're hiring
They're
somebody.
just flying below the radar is what they're doing.
Okay, well, we're gonna beat this to death for a long
Yeah,
time.
okay, well, I just got a couple other questions too.
Sure.
With the proposed possible workforce housing,
Mhm.
what burden would that put on the sewer plant? Because again, with all the short-term rentals, along Joy Track and stuff like that, how long will those people's septic systems be able to keep maintaining what they got? Is the sewer plant eventually gonna have to pick up those houses and stuff like that?
Okay, I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
The plant is actually, it's a 1,000,000 gallons a day plant, million
Million and a
plus.
half, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but it's 1,000,000 gallons a day. We never see, except in a big rainstorm, over 600,000 gallons. And that would be a deluge like crazy. There is, and we're only running on one of the basins, there's 2 reactors. We're only running on one. So we can actually put on a whole nother basin.
Yeah.
So we could treat 1,000,000 plus gallons a day without any trouble in its current configuration.
Right.
I mean, it does need to be updated. It's 1986 vintage,
Right.
but the engineering, the technology still will treat the water
Doesn't run anywhere near capacity.
Okay.
way under.
But your question is valid, because when it runs to capacity, then you gotta start thinking about, all right, what's coming?
Yeah, because like I'm saying, with, you know, if we're not gonna be able to stop the short-term rentals, a lot of these properties are getting used a heck of a lot more, and their septic systems are gonna start failing, and, you know, some properties don't have the land even.
Oh, we
Put it in.
Yeah.
That was all part of our proposal.
On the land for North Street,
Mhm.
the land that Rivet and Mitchell and everything owned, what are they asking for those 55 acres?
At least twice that it was.
600,000.
3 years ago, it was
650,
$650,000.
maybe.
I just was wondering, because I mean, that butts up to the town property already, and it's on the same side of the street, so you're not trying to work on 2 sides of the street, you're all working
It was
It's
looked
in
into.
it's in a potential contract situation.
Okay.
Yeah, they're working on subdividing it. We're a silent partner, so to speak, with the park agency, and as far as incorporating into the hamlet and the water and sewer districts, but they're working on subdividing it themselves. We
Affordable housing?
We did
Oh, to
research
answer your
it.
question,
Yeah.
that new facility over here that we're talking 40 units, it'd be 12,000 gallons a day. It was full occupancy,
Okay.
at 2 bedrooms.
That's not,
Yes.
okay. Anything else?
With the proposed law that we're working on now, you're saying the lawyer is saying that we don't really have much to stand on that for the short-term rentals, that it's addressing
We're gonna.
square footage, septic and stuff like that.
Well, we're gonna have a longer conversation in regards to that, to find out where we need to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I want to recognize a few town employees. You mentioned that pay scales have gone crazy. We've had a problem with getting town employees.
Oh, I know.
And I want to recognize a few of them, and I hope I don't miss any of them. BTI this year, instead of normally they have 7 applicators out there in the field. We had 4 guys out there this year, working their butts off to apply that BTI out there into the field. DPW has been operating 3-man short all summer long. Scott's been out slinging garbage on the trucks when he can, and in the meantime, then when he gets a chance, he goes down and does all his paperwork, and he's gotten back. Mike, I know for a fact, has been struggling to keep the information office open because he's shorthanded. So all these guys, Casey, luckily it's not his season, so he's been in fairly good shape. But those guys have been really busting their buns to keep things running properly and smoothly, and I'd like to recognize them for it. And also to mention Arbor Day, we are going to plant a couple of trees in Louis. Will you stop, please? Plant a couple of trees in Louis Ernstbeck's honor in front of the school. So just to mention that. I thought that was nice.
How do you like the flags of Louis on that Main Street?
Nice.
He deserved it.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a couple things.
Sure.
I was talking to Robert Moore, we have 8,000 maybe acres of land, for over in the snowmobile area that way. He said there was a management plan at one point for that. Is there a management plan for that land?
Forest management.
A forest management
correct.
plan,
There, yes, we have enforcement.
okay. There was an 2018 audit done of Macaulay Mountain. Has there been an updated POS system put in place there yet or no?
I thought that occurred that year.
Yeah, it happened right down.
Right done?
Yeah.
Immediately.
Okay, and then I just have one more question. The town bathrooms, what are the hours of the town bathrooms?
I'm not sure what time they open them up exactly. It's when the guys go to work in the morning, so it'd be 7 probably, 7-ish, and 10 o'clock at night, and they close for an hour and clean them then.
Okay, and who's in charge of cleaning the bathrooms?
Rick Kip and Rachel Butcher.
Okay, and who is in charge of overseeing Rick and?
Why? I'm just curious.
Because the bathrooms need attention more. So I'm just wondering who's in charge of overseeing the bathroom
I am.
cleaning.
Yeah.
Okay,
I talked to Rick.
okay. Is there a reason why they're not open 24 hours a day?
Yes, we tried it in Eagle Bay, and there was a lot of damage done late at
Lot of
night.
damage?
Mhm.
Okay,
We've had damage already on.
And we've had damage in
Yes.
there already. Yeah.
yeah, I've heard that. Is there a reason we haven't put a camera outside yet?
We're working on it. I'm working. That'll be done when the street lights are done.
Okay,
That's part of a grant.
part of the grant?
Yeah.
Okay,
Will be public Wi-Fi and some cameras around town mounted on the street light arms.
okay,
So yeah, it's been planned.
all right, thank you.
Would have been nice if we had it now, but we didn't.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay, so I'd like to just go to a quick executive session to talk about the
Oh, I'd love to make that motion.
What do you want?
bargaining agreement, collective bargaining.
And it was Barb and
Don.
And Don.
And I would like to say that I'm going to leave the room for that.
Yes. And we will not be conducting any business when we come out.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming. So we've come out of executive session. No business was conducted. So I need a motion to pay the audited claims. So
Second.
second.
who did the
Don
first?
and Barb.
Don.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Or do you want to stay? Second. Kurt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.